Nepal often gets reduced to one idea: mountains, temples, treks. It feels narrow, almost predictable. But once you move through Nepal, that idea collapses quickly, because this country doesn't behave like a single place. The land rises too fast, the climate changes without warning, and entire regions feel disconnected, not hidden, just operating under different rules, where the land rises too quickly. Traveling across Nepal doesn't feel gradual. The road climbs, then climbs again. Then suddenly, breathing changes. Here's the first shock. In a short horizontal distance, Nepal rises from subtropical lowlands to some of the highest terrain on Earth. There's no smooth transition. Your body reacts before your eyes fully understand what's happening. The land doesn't prepare you, it forces adjustment. Start in the Terai Plains, where temperatures hover in tropical ranges, where rice paddies spread wide and flat, where humidity sits thick in the air. Drive north for a few hours. The plains end abruptly. Hills begin without introduction. Then those hills become mountains. Real mountains, not foothills pretending. Within a single day of travel, you can move from jungle heat to alpine cold, from elephant habitat to snow leopard territory, from sea level pressure to oxygen so thin your lungs work twice as hard for half the result. The elevation gain happens faster here than almost anywhere else on Earth. The biological zones stack vertically like floors in a building. Each one operates under completely different environmental laws. This compression of ecosystems creates something disorienting. Your body hasn't adapted, your mind hasn't caught up, but the land has already changed 3 times, when scale stops making sense. Inside Sagarmatha National Park, distance behaves strangely. Peaks don't sit on the horizon, they surround you. Here's what feels unsettling. Mountains feel close, not far away. Clouds move below eye level. Weather changes in minutes. Sound travels unpredictably. This isn't scenery. It's an enclosed environment built from elevation. Walk through Namche Bazaar or trek toward Everest Base Camp. The mountains don't recede as you approach them. They grow, but not in the way you expect. Instead of expanding outward, they close in. They form walls. They reshape your sense of open space. Here's what happens to your perception. You see a peak. It looks maybe an hour away. You walk for 3 hours. It hasn't gotten closer. Then the weather moves in, not from a direction, from below. Clouds rise from valleys like slow floods. They don't pass over, they engulf. Within 20 minutes, visibility drops from kilometers to meters. Sound behaves differently here too. Sometimes it carries impossibly far. Other times it dies immediately, swallowed by the thin air and the stone walls surrounding you. This isn't a place you observe from a distance. It's a place that observes you and decides whether you belong. And then Nepal turns dry, where Nepal becomes a desert. North of the main Himalayan wall, the land empties. This is Upper Mustang. Here's the shock. Despite sitting near some of the tallest mountains on Earth, this region receives almost no rain. The Himalayas block moisture completely. Stone replaces soil. Wind replaces water. It feels less like South Asia and more like something cut off from the rest of the country. The monsoon rains that drench the rest of Nepal never reach here. The mountains form a barrier too tall for weather systems to cross. So Upper Mustang sits in a rain shadow, permanent, absolute. The landscape turns to dust and rock. Colors shift to browns, grays, ochres, the palette of abandonment. Erosion carves cliffs into formations that look almost architectural. It feels Tibetan, and it should, because geographically, culturally, it shares more with the Tibetan Plateau than with Kathmandu. The wind here doesn't stop. It scrapes across the land constantly. It carries dust, cold, and a sound that never fully disappears. If you're interested in places where geography controls everything, and modern systems don't fully apply, subscribe. This channel explores destinations where the land sets the rules, where water exists above comfort. High in the mountains sits Tilico Lake. Here's what feels wrong. This lake exists above 4,900 meters. The air is thin, movement slows, silence feels heavy. Water exists here, but comfort doesn't. Standing near it doesn't feel peaceful, it feels exposed. Tilicho is one of the highest lakes of its size in the world. It sits in a glacial basin, surrounded by peaks that scrape past 7,000 meters. The water is impossibly blue, not tropical blue. Deep blue, the kind that comes from glacial melt and mineral suspension. But standing there doesn't feel like standing beside a normal lake. Your heart pounds from effort, not exertion. Your head throbs from altitude, not dehydration. Your breath comes short and shallow. But those minutes reshape how you think about water, about elevation, about the places where natural features exist purely because the land allowed it, not because it makes sense. When distance becomes restricted, further west, access changes again. This is Langtang Valley and nearby remote regions. Here's what surprises visitors. Distance isn't measured by kilometers. It's measured by permission, terrain, and weather. Movement is slow by design. Routes exist only when conditions allow. The land decides when travel is possible. You can see a village on the opposite ridge. It looks close, maybe 2 kilometers as the crow flies. But there's no direct route. The valley drops 1,000 meters between you and that village. The trail switchbacks down, crosses a river, then climbs back up the other side. What looks like 2 kilometers becomes 8. What looks like an hour becomes 5. And that's only if the trail is open. The infrastructure doesn't extend here. Roads end. Phone signals disappear. Electricity becomes sporadic or non-existent. This isn't wilderness in the recreational sense. It's wilderness in the old sense, land that resists human presence, where the earth cuts too deeply. Running through Nepal is one of the deepest gorges on earth. This is the Kali Gandaki Gorge. Here's the shock. This river cuts between some of the tallest mountains on the planet. The land didn't rise around the river. The river carved its way through rising land. Scale here feels inverted. Everything points downward. On either side of the Kali Gandaki River stand Dhaulagiri and Annapurna. Both exceed 8,000 meters. Between them, the river runs at roughly 2,500 meters elevation. That creates a vertical relief of over 5,500 meters from river to summit. Think about that. The depth of the gorge, measured from peaks to river bed, exceeds the height of most mountains. The river didn't find a gap between the mountains. It created the gap. As the Indian tectonic plate pushed into Asia, forcing the Himalayas upward, the Kali Gandaki kept cutting downward. It carved through rising rock. It maintained its course even as the land around it climbed thousands of meters into the sky. This isn't a valley, it's a scar. Why Nepal feels unsettling? Nepal doesn't balance extremes. It stacks them. Lowlands to glaciers, dense valleys to open desert, crowded routes to complete isolation. The country isn't designed for smooth movement. It's shaped by collision of plates, climate, and elevation. That's why it feels intense. The land never compromises. Most countries offer transition zones, buffer regions where one ecosystem slowly gives way to another, where elevation changes feel gradual, where climate shifts happen over hundreds of kilometers. Nepal compresses all of that. The collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates continues. The Himalayas still rise, measurably, each year. Earthquakes remind you that this landscape is still forming, still violent, still unstable. All of this creates a country that never feels settled, that never feels finished. It's a landscape still in the process of becoming. Nepal isn't just mountains. It's altitude that changes how you breathe. Deserts hidden behind peaks. Water existing where comfort doesn't. Distances controlled by terrain, not maps. These places weren't shaped for ease. They weren't shaped for visitors. They were shaped by force. If this video changed how you think about Nepal, subscribe. Because some of the most powerful places to visit aren't extreme because they're dangerous. They're extreme because they exist at all.